Homeschool survival. This week, Mr. Crow, maths supply teacher at the Fieldsports Channel Academy for gifted hunters, will be shooting pigeons in the fog before setting you your homework. Answers on my desk Monday morning. From partially visible pigeons to more lockdown walked up pest and game birds, I am out with Ollie Williams in Cornwall. Plus, small print, massive problems. We dissect the general licences and reveal some real shockers. We have news, we have hunting YouTube. Welcome to Fieldsports Britain.
Can you see me, David? I'm setting up on the hope that the fog is going to clear.
Who has the advantage on a day like today? Crow or pigeon?
I'm going to get back down the gym, hopefully next week.
On arrival on the farm, the fog is thick, but the forecast says things will clear by late morning. Thankfully, we are not just here for a lesson in shooting. We're here for a lesson in maths. With so many keen students stuck at home, we thought we'd employ the pigeon shooters equivalent of Carol Vorderman or Rachel Riley to set some maths questions. And we want to see your workings.
Definitely clearing.
What did you get in maths at O level?
Yeah, probably. Is that the right answer, sir?
I don't know.
Oh, right. Well, I don't know. It's not my favourite, but I've always got a calculator in my pocket, so if the old numbers get a bit too much, you know what us farmers like, we've got to get it right, so we've got to get the old figures about right, so. But no.
Let's move on.
Let's move on quickly, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, if you look down here, David, there you've got a couple of bits of wheat. It's a bit rough here, it's always wet here, so it hasn't gone in all that well, but no, it went in a little bit rough, but the pigeons are out on it, just pulling it up as it's coming through. It was a maize stubble, so there's a little bit of maize here in places. They've just about cleared that up now, but the crows are here and they're starting to dig it up, so the farm managers asked me to come out here and have a go. Not ideal day, no wind.
And the fact is, you're doing a job. You're doing within lockdown now. You're doing pest
That's
control.
right. Yeah.
Also,
yeah.
If you were stop crowy, you've got.
I've got a letter from the landowner. I've got my shotgun, my firearms ticket. I've got the whole lot with me. Yeah, you've got to do your job for the filming. I've got to do my job to keep the pigeons and the crows off. And there's only one good crow, and that's a dead one. So, well, not me though.
Tiger.
Not me.
Back to learning in lockdown, and once we finish shooting, we're going to set you some maths questions. That's just how much fun we are. We want to calculate how much it costs Andy to keep a pigeon fed on his farm. Now, we won't be taking the hooligan element of the woody into account when it nibbles, shoots, pecks, buds, bends, stalks and sets off seed pod explosions. These all undermine the productivity of the crop, but are difficult to quantify, a bit like today's efforts.
I want to hear about you at school.
Yeah, well, I loved it.
Did you sit in the exams?
Yeah, I did. Don't laugh, David. Of course I bloody did. I wouldn't be a successful farmer if I hadn't, would I?
Well, what I'm balancing here is the fact that academics is one thing, but actually vocational, practical stuff is another.
I'll put it like this. I was good at cookery at school. I was good at woodwork. I was good at metalwork. I was good at sports. English was all right. History was... Oh, yeah.
We're going to talk about maths today, though.
It is not my strongest subject, I will give it that.
But you've got to be so on it with all the sort of dilutions and...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but that's
practical, but it's still maths.
Yeah, you look at a spray can or a fertiliser sheet and it's in me. I just look at it and it's just second nature. The figures just tick over in my head.
So if you had exam questions that involve fertiliser,
if I sat me maths exam now, I'd be a lot better than I was when I did my maths exam.
Because you see the practical application.
Crow does get some shooting, but he is really just a foghorn, warning the pigeons of disaster if they decide to come too close. Andy may be getting some, but David needs to stay behind for extra tutoring after today's efforts.
Hey.
Oh,
Cleared beautifully, isn't it?
it's cleared lovely, isn't it?
This is sort of like, never mind.
Yeah. One of those days, David.
So the weatherman was wrong. Andy decides to pack up just as the sun appears, but the best of the shooting would have been an hour ago. He puts away his F-16 and transforms into Mr. Crow, the maths scholar. Now class, pay attention. Mr. Crow will give you the numbers and we will set the questions using the information he provides. First up, look at how much they can stuff in there.
That's about what a pigeon holds its crop. That's being generous as well. They probably hold more than that. But in the summer when they're feeding, they do a crop in the morning and then do a crop in the afternoon. So you're looking at at least two of them, if not more, a day. Let's put that in there.
23 grams of wheat in a pigeon.
Twice a day.
Okay, Mr. Crow, so how much is wheat at the moment?
Wheat at the moment, I've just sold some this week, and we sold that for £220 a tonne, and it's still going up at the minute.
That's a metric tonne, so it's 1,000 kilograms?
Yep, 30 kilos. So let's weigh that out. And bear in mind in the summer when the pigeons are feeding on peas, they'll be out on those at 5 o'clock in the morning, get a crop full and then go and digest those and then go back for another crop in the afternoon. But it's not what's in their crop, it's what's on the ground. If you get a big number of pigeons out there, as soon as they touch the pods, they just twist and open, the peas all fall out. And if they don't, and they open a pod, as soon as they open that pod, it'll twist. They get the pea they want, and then the rest will just drop down through the crop onto the floor, and they can't get to them anyway. So,
Well, what's the price of peas?
Price of peas, that's not that good at the moment. That's about 240 per tonne at the minute. It's a bit disappointing, that's why they're still in the shed. That's been a bit generous as well, to what a pigeon can get in its crop. It's exactly the same as with the peas. If a pigeon's landing on unharvested rape, shooting people would know as soon as you touch a pod when it's dry, they just shatter. So they land down to pick rapeseed out of the pod. They open one pod, there'd be probably 20 seeds fall out, and plus it's the other pods that they land on to get open that pod. So.
Okay, so what about length of time on a particular crop then, Crow?
Say 3 weeks that the rape's vulnerable to pigeons on the seed. Once it's been harvested, they're just feeding on the seed that's on the floor, which is gone anyway, so it's not such a problem. It's the damage they do on the plant while it's producing the seed.
Okay.
The wheat's a bit longer. As soon as wheat goes into a milky stage, it comes into here and then it goes into the milky stage, then they start attacking it. Depends on the year, you're looking 6 weeks. So they'll be attacking that wheat for at least 6 weeks before you harvest it.
Okay.
6 to 8 weeks they'll be on that before you harvest it.
Okay.
The peas it's a bit longer because as soon as they start podding up, pods start getting green, they start to open them. So they'll be on those. Yeah, I suppose it probably would be about six weeks again. See, they've taken the flowering head out of there. It's gone. The flowering head's there. But it's the damage they do on the crops while it's producing the ears, while it's producing the rapeseed, while it's producing the pods. You start working out how much a tonne's worth and how much a pigeon's eating and how many pigeons you've had on a field for 2 to 3 weeks, and you think, Christ, they've eaten a lot of corn, that's a lot of profit.
On the screen is a summary of the information for wheat and the first of 4 questions. For all of the questions, have a look in the description below. One pigeon eats 46 grams a day for 6 weeks. The price of wheat is £220 a tonne. A tonne is, yep, well done at the front, 1,000 kilograms. Question 1. How much grain in kilograms does this pigeon eat in A, 1 week, B, 2 weeks, C, 6 weeks? If you want to do more, repeat the above, but substitute wheat for the following. Peas. One pigeon eats 50 grams a day for 3 weeks. The price of peas is £240 a tonne. Rapeseed. One pigeon eats 50 grams a day for 3 weeks. The price of rapeseed is £400 a tonne with bonus. It's an oil thing. Thank you, Mr. Crow. Every day is a school day, but that doesn't mean you need to be in school to learn. Tell your parents you're going pigeon shooting and it's important. Thank you, Mr. Crow. All the questions are written in the description below, and if I learned anything, it's what a good job our pest controllers do keeping birds off crops. We know that research by the Agriculture and Horticulture Development Boards shows that wood pigeons alone cause £125 worth of loss on yield per hectare of oilseed rape, up to £1,250 loss in yield of brassicas such as cabbages. Even if you're being a scarecrow and keep them off the fields for a day, you're doing a good job. Now from news to current affairs, and it's David on the Fieldsports Channel News Stump.
This is Fieldsports Channel News. While Justice has lost its court case to limit pest control in Wales. In a High Court judgment, Judge Jarman QC rejected all three of Wild Justice's claims that the legal process of controlling pest birds, the general licences, was not lawful. BASC spent more than £140,000 from its newly launched Fighting Fund to give shooting a voice in the legal challenge and to help Natural Resources Wales defend the case. BASC also fought to be recognised by the court as an interested party.
In this instance, they've lost on all three grounds. The judgment is worth a read, and despite the best efforts of Wild Justice to present this as victory, they've actually lost 3-0 on this one. This isn't a victory for them, it's a defeat.
Police Scotland is still investigating the stag in water Facebook post 2 months after it happened. A stag shot crossing a loch provoked outrage from some deer stalkers and prompted a police investigation, and Police Scotland requested that the shooter in the film, Fraser MacDonald, surrender his firearms. We made a Freedom of Information request to find out how much the investigation has cost the taxpayer and how many police officers are involved. Police Scotland says it's unable to answer our request. Independent experts put the sum for 2 months of investigation at close to 6 figures. Fraser says he's heard nothing.
I was made aware, must have been around the beginning of November, that they were going to come and speak to me. I've not heard anything back from them since.
Shooters and conservationists are praising Channel 4 for a series of balanced films about life in the Yorkshire countryside. Filmed over a year, the 4-part series called The Yorkshire Dales and the Lakes covers each season and shows how country sports thrive in the national parks and keep the landscape looking lovely. Head gamekeeper of the Bolton Hall estate shows what his job involves.
Yeah, really nice, light-hearted programme, and the way the sort of team at True North put it together, thought it sort of really showed off the moor and the wildlife really, really well.
Chris Packham has slammed royals for supporting hunting tourism. The BBC TV presenter's outburst came 2 days after the Guardian newspaper accused celebrities of undermining conservation by calling for bans on trophy hunting. Packham insisted royals need to grow up, insisting lions are on the brink of extinction, and repeated his call for a ban on the import of hunting trophies.
Well, Chris Packham does mention that he knows that hunting tourism, trophy hunting, does have positive effects for nature conservation, but that the ethical issues of hunting overshadows those positive effects. Now, those are not the words of a conservationist. Those are the words of an animal rightist. And furthermore, it shows me that he is putting himself in front of nature conservation. His offended feelings are more important to him than actual practical nature conservation results.
2 people are needed to manage a herd of European bison. The animals are being released into woods near Canterbury. Although there have been populations in the UK for decades, European bison were driven virtually to extinction, but a breeding programme in Poland has seen their numbers bounce back. Kent Wildlife Trust and the Woodland Trust hope the bison will positively disrupt the woodland. They fell trees by rubbing against them and eating the bark, creating gaps in the woods. The successful candidates will help keep the bison in as wild a state as possible after they are introduced in 2022. BASC is urging its members to respond to a Home Office firearms consultation. The survey covers air guns, ammunition components, high muzzle energy rifles and miniature rifle ranges in England, Wales and Scotland. BASC has compiled a list of suggested responses to the online consultation, which closes on the 16th of February 2021. Organisers of the British Shooting Show have cancelled the 2021 event. They are concerned laying on the trade and retail show might affect the industry as a whole, so have decided to scrap it, as they feel it would be irresponsible to hold it because of coronavirus. ITV News claims that the Glastonbury Festival has banned hunts from fundraising at the gig. Some members of the Mendip Farmers Hunt in Somerset work as stewards at the festival, and ITV claims their wages are used to fund the hunt's activities. The TV station is relying on information supplied by Innocent Badger website, which has forced to move to a server in Iceland after police shut it down for illegal activity, including publishing online the names and addresses of people involved in the badger culls. American clothing giant Patagonia is supporting a hunting and shooting SABS group in Yorkshire. Patagonia is backing the Moorland Monitors run by Luke Steele, previously convicted and sentenced to 18 months in prison for a raft of offences connected to his animal rights work. Patagonia has given Moorland Monitors a financial grant and backed the group on its activism page and Twitter feed. The move has drawn criticism from shooters. A shop associated with Patagonia says the company was duped into the deal.
Patagonia have been duped, for want of a better word. So they're meeting with lots of people tomorrow and they realise it is a mistake. So please don't be too hard on Patagonia.
The annual battle over the Australian duck season is underway. Duck shooting is popular and the bird is an agricultural pest in some areas. However, antis work hard persuading state governments to limit bag numbers, shorten the length of the season and reduce the number of species that can be shot. Antis are triumphant that a recent survey of Australian duck shooters found that 80% of them can't identify which ducks are protected. However, the government survey did not conclude that was grounds for a ban, just that shooters need to be better at identifying ducks. Thanks to Richard Walton for the story. And finally, South America has a new pest control problem. African hippos are spreading rapidly across Colombia along the Magdalena River. Drug lord Pablo Escobar's pet hippos are out of control and their voracious breeding must be curbed, say scientists. The animals broke out of his private zoo after police shot Escobar dead in 1993. You are now up to date with Fieldsports Channel News. Stalking the stories, fishing for facts.
Thank you, David. And staying with homeschooling for media students out there, why not come up with some alternative headlines for this week's news stories? Keep them clean, send them to me, and I will read out the best ones next week. Now, before we turn our attention to general licences, here's a word from Zeiss. Now, the new general licences in England are much the same as last year, DEFRA assured us in the autumn. Apparently not, as news editor Ben O'Rourke finds out.
I have seen Natural England and government agencies, Ben, pull some stunts. But at the moment, I reckon these new documents, these new general licences, were not written by anybody with any form of countryside knowledge. Who, in God's name, would say that under protection of flora and fauna, that you cannot take rooks and jackdaws to preserve wild birds? It is a known fact that corvids will kill anything they can get their sticky little beaks into.
Falconer and pest controller Gary Baxter is not happy with the new general licences for England issued by DEFRA.
This is so funny. We can, so it says, protect endangered wild birds with nest cages to exclude target birds and prevent damage. Oh yes, we can cover up anything you like to protect it from magpie and jay, rook and jackdaw and carrion crow. Who in God's name has got the time to go round putting nest cages over songbirds' nests?
A lot of it is quite unworkable, but actually we, from the Alliance's perspective, are pretty pleased that DEFRA has issued these licenses rather than Natural England, that control has been taken away from Natural England, who had previously proved incompetent of delivering workable licenses. And we also feel that these do allow land managers, conservationists, gamekeepers to do the vast majority of their jobs. And one of the problems with grouse moors and our uplands is that so much of that is designated as a European protected site, which meant in the previous general licenses that they weren't applicable to European protected sites. You had to apply for an individual license.
There was a restriction around all of these sites and the 300-metre buffer zone. So that's gone now. If you read the licence, it says it applies everywhere, provided they stick to the rules, they've got the legitimate reason, they can rely on the general licence, they don't have to apply for the individual one. So it's better. It's definite improvement.
Some of the advice given in the licences appears to be aimed at children, such as explaining that physical objects like trees and buildings can be used as cover by keepers and pest controllers so they don't disturb rare birds at their nests.
The level of advice and guidance is exactly as you say, pretty condescending and often unworkable and unnecessary. But I think what we have to remember is that these licenses come from a place where DEFRA and Natural England have been continually challenged with the threat of legal action, and they therefore exist to try and close off all of those possible loopholes that come about through our adherence to the EU Birds and Habitats Directive.
I think that's a valid point about the advice. I think that's the important thing to remember with it, though. It is just advice. It's the conditions, so it's complying with the conditions. So there's a legal requirement, whether you're a gamekeeper, a farmer, whatever, not to intentionally or recklessly disturb a Schedule 1 bird. They've tried to be helpful. As you say, I'm not sure. A lot of people will read that and think, yes, this is as you just said, it's not written for somebody like me. But I suppose they've tried to be helpful. Let's leave it there, type thing on that.
Sam says the dumbed down detail is due to Wild Justice's judicial reviews, forcing DEFRA to make the licences understandable to everyone.
It really is a result of the judicial reviews that Wild Justice have threatened into the general licensing approach of DEFRA and Natural England. So that's why they seem very pedantic, very overburdened with absurd guidance that's attached to them, because they do need to cover off all of these legal avenues.
The new papers specifically name birds that can be targeted. Further details explain where certain protected birds are and exclusion zones around them. Gary sees these as unworkable.
How many people walk through the New Forest every summer? You have got now a 750 metre exclusion zone around a honey buzzard's nest. Does anybody know where a honey buzzard nests? Does anybody know what a honey buzzard nest look like? But you've got a 750 metre exclusion zone around it.
Basque's Glyn Evans explains the exclusion zones are simply another case of DEFRA going overboard in its explanations, and the area is simply places where you need to take extra care not to disturb rare birds.
If you took the SPA that's got a little turn that's listed on the licence, and that says 200 metres. So, for instance, if you had a little tern that was nesting right on the very edge of the site. That pushes the site out 200 metres, as it were, to tell you to be careful. That doesn't mean to say that you can't carry out control in that 200 metres. It tells you that beyond 200 metres, in effect, is a safe known working zone.
Last year, Gary's application for a gull pest control permit at a Norfolk factory that makes gear for the NHS was rejected despite the pandemic.
That site in Kings Lynn, Ben, is still producing membrane 7 days a week for surgical scrubs and gowns. If any of that material goes to waste because of bird damage, whose fault is it? I've done my bit. The government need to do theirs now.
He is about to apply for another individual licence to protect the factory, but it seems unlikely he will get it.
The issue with gulls is an enormous one. Particularly, that's where I think the biggest contradiction is, because they have arbitrarily capped the number of individual licences that are available for gulls, and most of those are used up for protecting, as you say, urban areas or indeed around airports, and not for conservation purposes. Last year, Natural England issued almost no gull licences, and we've received a letter this year, like everyone else, blaming COVID for an unprecedented workload and a diminished workforce, and that they don't foresee being able to issue many, if any, individual licences this year. So our species of highest conservation concern in this country, the curlew, is likely to have another very tough breeding season.
Gulls are not the only birds missing from the new licences. DEFRA has dropped protection for green-listed birds, a move Basque and the Countryside Alliance say is a mistake.
That's something that I would have liked to have seen remain. I don't think it, for me, the licences are about conserving birds, and for a bird to have to be in decline, in effect, to have to be amber or red listed, what could be happening is the efforts to conserve a green listed bird could be keeping it as green listed. So it seems to me a little bit counterintuitive that birds have to be at that level of decline.
Thank you, Ben. And please, can I remind you that these news items come to you thanks to our supporters who pay for them, the Fieldsports Nation. Please, can I this week welcome the following members: Josh Gale, Gary, GTA, Ashton, Christopher Koss from Australia, and Rick Lawson, who joined on Facebook, Adrian Young, Barney Martin, Joey Woodall, John Collins, Richard Jackson, sub-12-pound shooter, and Neil Hartley, who joined on YouTube, and Peter Flounders, Ron Gardner, Mark George, Joe Howell, John Nimmick, Ben Sexton, Steve Morgan, and Jason Cresswell, who joined via the website. Goodie boxes going out to you shortly, especially if you sent me your address. Happily, the general licences are still for game birds. I head to Cornwall to join Ollie Williams as he takes his daily lockdown recreation with dog and gun. Ollie Williams is shooting alone. If it weren't for lockdown, he'd be out with a team of beaters and guns today.
There would have been certainly 40 people directly involved with the day, so around 30 of which would have been employed. Obviously around 8 guns, and then myself and Dad. But it's a big missing part of certainly my life, and I think everybody else's lives probably they're watching this show. So it's nice just to be able to still go out with a gun and my dogs, to be honest with you. It's a licorice all sorts kind of morning with anything legal on the menu. Hello, get back! We haven't got any birds this year, but we may well see some woodcock, may well see some squirrel, may well see some pigeons, and hopefully 1 or 2 pheasants. So basically just a walk around, an arm walk really with the dogs, my daily exercise if you like, and just to go out and enjoy myself. Oh, bugger. There's a gorse bank that looks promising, and sure enough, up goes a bird. We've just walked down that valley and you were so disinterested the whole time, and then suddenly it just completely changed. Almost the tackles went up, and you just when you work the dog enough, and you're your own dog, you know the way it reacts, and obviously then he was onto something. Smelling around here was obviously fresh scent. The bird had just recently run up and it flushed from 20 yards away. The next one takes Ollie by surprise on the other side of a hedge. It comes down too. I don't know how I shot that, but it's going to run.
This is where he is especially glad he has a good picking up dog. Ollie has 2 dogs out today, one working and the other out for recreational lockdown exercise only.
She's got hip dysplasia, so yeah, it's a bit of a challenge with him, but he's got a golden heart, so it'll always come out. The other one's just a classic lab who sits in the field and won't go into brambles, so a bit of a challenge.
Now, squirrels. You don't want to be a squirrel and get near Ollie.
I have a fervent hate of grey squirrels, and always will, but as anyone that looks at my Twitter will know, yeah, if we can see some squirrels and shoot some squirrels, that'd be great. I know you're there somewhere, you little Trouble is, as soon as I break the gun, he'll bolt. No, he's in here somewhere. There he is. I can't get a shot at him. Good boy. Thank you. I hit him, got him. Hellos, get back, get back, get back, get back. Hellos, 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 hellos. He's running on the floor.
The second one he shoots he can't find, and then he meets his squirrel nemesis.
Thought I saw something there a minute ago. Oh, you I know it. Oh, he's giving me the run around. I can't believe it. Oh, he's got in a hole. The third one was a bit of a Benny Hill moment and was furiously running around a tree, branches falling down left, right and centre as I rained hellfire upon it, but no, it moved on. As I fired, he jumped the branch, and the branch he was on just fell down. So the gun was in the right place, the squirrel was in the wrong place, I think is the excuse.
Last on the list is a field where Ollie hopes he will find snipe.
They're always there, know exactly where they are. You know, sniper, even when it's wet everywhere, they're always drawn to the same ground. The golden rule with snipers, they will never sit where sheep are. A lot of animals don't like sheep, but snipe in particular hate sheep. So if sheep have been there basically within the last 3 months, they won't be anywhere near it. But also, when you flush a snipe, it'll always make a pass, again, over the same spot that it was flushed over, and if possible, it will land. You know, these ones especially, I've seen them do it. I've seen 30 put off and then basically 25 land back at the exact same spot 5 minutes later. So if you're patient, you can wait, but know exactly where they were. And I told you that I'd miss them, and I did, so it all went to plan.
The bag, 2 pheasant and a squirrel picked.
It was quite a nice morning actually. You know, it's a nice walk, and to bump into a few vermin and a few game birds was a bonus. So yeah, pleased.
Next season, when we hope we're out of lockdown and back to normal, you can go driven pheasant shooting with Ollie. Visit CornishSportingAgency.com. Thank you, Ollie. Now from Cornwall to the wider world of hunting and shooting on YouTube. It's Hunting YouTube. This is Hunting YouTube, which aims to show the best hunting and shooting videos that YouTube has to offer. The Cumbrian rabbiters are out working for the local council, catching 247 rabbits in a weekend, ferreting and lamping. Tommy from Rural Pest Control Whitwell sends me a link to his latest squirrel shooting video. He's out pinging them off a feeder. Corvid Hunter is thinning vermin in a woodland belt. He's out just after the snow, mainly shooting squirrels. Some top-class drone flying alongside better than adequate shooting in this film. Can a drone chase a skeet target and not get hit? It's a film sponsored by the drone manufacturer DJI and will doubtless inspire our own David Bede Mill to greater cinematography. More clays. Back in 2012 we put up a film of Italian trick shooter Raniero Testa smashing a record 12 clays in one go. Now he shoots a new world record 17 in this film from Winchester. He uses a Winchester SX4. Thanks Brendan Harvey from the Castletown Homestead channel in Ireland for sending me this shameless plug for Jack Pike in a film showing their decoys are so realistic that a sparrowhawk comes in to attack them while he's out shooting. Thanks to Christopher Cross for sending me this film on the Aussie Bush Harvest channel. It's a new monthly episode, Hunter Harvester Day to Day, covering hunting and fishing, game recipes, gear talk and hunting strategies down under. And finally, walked up shooting US style with the Flush channel. Travis Frank and Ron Boehmer are after Great Lakes grouse and woodcock on Michigan's Beaver Island. That's it for this week. I have put all these films into a playlist for you. Click on the eye symbol top right or check this film's description. If you have a YouTube film you would like us to pop into the weekly top 8, email me the link, charlie@fieldsportschannel.tv. And that's it for this week. If you haven't done so, please whiz over to our website, fieldsportschannel.tv. You can click like us there on Facebook and on Instagram. You can follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, and pop your email address into our register page, and we'll contact you about this show. Fieldsports Britain, it's at 7 p.m. UK time every Wednesday. And this has been Fieldsports Britain in the grip of Storm Christoph. Good hunting, good shooting, good fishing, and goodbye.